A big welcome to our Sunday worship service. In the language of one of the people who also walk this land, Tots may we. That's the morning greeting in Nimipu. I'm Rodney Fry, and I have the distinct honor of being your celebrant this morning. I'd like to extend a special welcome to all those people who are joining us for the first time. We are very glad you're here. If you come in person, you should have received a welcome packet with an information card. If you could fill it out, drop it in the offering basket, we'll get in touch with you and share how we can support you in our community. If you're joining us online, there's a link in the website to the electronic version of the same card. Our welcoming committee are members with yellow tags. Raise your hand. Thank you. And can answer any questions or point you toward additional information. Whether or not you're new, please join us downstairs in the fellowship hall for coffee and great conversation, or staying in the Zoom room if you're on Zoom. Now let us say our words of welcome. Whether this is your first or your 1000th Sunday with us, and whether you strolled, rolled, zoomed, ran, or danced in, we're glad you chose to join us. We are one people of many beliefs, identities, origins, sexualities, and genders. All are welcome here. Now is the moment that will sail across the technical divide. First, if you're joining us on Zoom, please turn on your cameras. And now people on Zoom wave and say, Tots may we. Didn't hear you. And now people who are attending service in the building, it's your turn to wave and say, Tots may we. And we do have a couple of announcements. I'd like to invite Nancy Nelson forward to tell us about the shared worship team.
We're focused on filling in what we saw as the holes in our worship calendar, the days when Reverend Elizabeth isn't speaking, including our summer services. Lately, though, our conversations have taken a different shape. We've had too many retreats where we've had a chance to think about times when worship services fostered relationships between each other, between ourselves and our own spiritual journeys, and times when a service has moved us. Those conversations led to new ideas for services. We identified monthly themes and topics that we thought were important to the congregation. It also prompted some new ways of thinking about planning worship. I wondered, can worship services be more collaboration and less filling in empty slots? Could creating worship services become a source of joy for people that haven't done it before? Are there new ways to worship together that we haven't tried yet? What voices are we missing from our worship services? Is there a different way to do this committee? It turns out there is.
So I really love co-creating worship with others. I love the way ideas spark and grow and unfold in conversation. I think hearing from diverse perspectives and voices makes our Sunday services better. However, the previous attempts that I've made to create structured ways for us to collaborate all fizzled out. Nancy and I began to wonder if we could build a shared worship team with the same level of commitment, training, and investment as our amazing pastoral ministry team. This team wouldn't just be filling slots, but holding the worship life of this congregation with me and the staff in ways that both go deeper than traditional committee work and reach wider, bringing in those diverse voices in meaningful and organic ways. Having this kind of team in place would make it possible for us to do more in worship, while also relieving the stress and pressure that the staff and I feel sometimes as a result of having to come up with fresh services week after week.
If this is a conversation that you think you might want to be a part of, see me after church and take a look at our application. You'll get a better idea of the training that we'll be doing and what your responsibilities would be during the year. We're excited to start this. So if you're interested, or if you have an idea of somebody you would really like to see on this worship team, let me know. After church, I'll have the applications, or you can email Reverend Elizabeth. Thank you.
Any other announcements? Here end the announcements. We preface this service by acknowledging that our church was built on the ancestral homelands of the indigenous people. They include the Nimipu, meaning the people. Falsely assuming that they practiced piercing their noses, the French-speaking traders called them Nez Perce. When you depart today, look on the ridge just to the south of us, Paradise Ridge. That's a special place for the Nimipu. They called it Tekimipu, land of the spotted deer. Special place. The people also included the Sichumps, meaning the ones who are found here, referring to Lake Coeur d'Alene, their creation place. Known as sharp traders, the French-speaking traders soon called them Coeur d'Alene, heart of the awl, the needle. Their term for this place, by the way, is Smaqua. Smaqua. Over time, the European settlers mispronounced Smaqua, it becoming Moscow. Now you know. And the people also included the Palus, from Paluspam, meaning the people found near the rock standing up in the river at the confluence of the Palouse and the Snake. The rock standing up is known as Coyote's Canoe. And that was the site of the Palus's head village. Let us pause and remember that we live on sacred ground, ground that was stolen, ground that cries out for justice and responsible stewardship. May we remember, and may our use of the appropriate indigenous terms and place names help us find the courage to do our part to help restore wholeness to the earth and all its people. We are hoping that folks on Zoom have a chalice to light a candle. Let us light our chalice candle now. In the light of truth and the warmth of love, we gather to seek and seek to share. Let hunger, hope, and love arise. Let beauty.
I am the Reverend Dr. Elizabeth Stevens, and I have the incredible privilege of serving this congregation as its minister. Look at our walls, and what do you see? values on beautiful banners. This is mostly the work of Belinda Rhodes. Belinda, would you let us give you a round of applause to thank you? Hours and hours. So, who remembers what they are and why they are here? What these words are for? Who remembers? Principles abbreviated. All close. Yes. Exactly. So we don't have a creed. We don't have a statement of shared belief, but we do have a statement of shared values. And we review that statement of shared values about every decade, although we've gone for 20 years since the last revision this last time. And so we examine them and we re-articulate them. We're in the midst of that process, and the proposed changes lift up these 7 words as our core values. So transformation and generosity, equity and justice, interdependence and pluralism, with love at the center. Now, to help you remember the six values, we figure everybody can remember love. There's actually a cute little acronym, JETPIG. So JETPIG. Don't be surprised if you see a little pig with a backpack showing up in the church at some point. So justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, interdependence, and generosity. JETPIG. So I told you it was going to be easier to remember. So this month we've taken each of these themes, each of these values as our theme, our worship theme for a month. And this month our theme is pluralism. So this is the language, the proposed language around pluralism in the revised Article 2. We celebrate that we are all sacred beings, diverse in culture, experience, and theology. We covenant to learn from one another in our free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We embrace our differences and commonalities with love, curiosity, and respect. So today, as an entry point into this theme, we're reflecting on the gifts of pluralism and the disciplines that it requires of us. But let's begin by singing together. Ain't Gonna Let Nobody Turn Me Around. This is the one of the songs from the Social Justice Songbook that we're trying to add to our repertoire by singing it a few times in a row. So it'll be familiar.
Not yet. Okay. Not yet. So maybe you've noticed that we have a few new microphones. You may occasionally hear feedback as we get used to how people speak and how they change when we move around. So one of the things that this allows us to do is to hear more voices. So over the next few weeks, we're hoping to add even more voices into the mix. So I did listen to the recording from last week. Everybody did awesome, so thank you for that. Alex did a great job playing. Thank you, Alex. So for this week, let's start changing some of the words a little bit. Okay, so one change I also wanted to make, so for those of you who are music readers, the author had this little, very tricky bar of 2/4. Let's just get rid of that. So we'll just keep it all in 4. It'll be totally fine. So we're going to start with Ain't Nobody, right? So could you put up a lyric for me? Okay, great. And now instead of, we did racism last week, so we're going to do sexism. So no sexism. We're not going to let sexism turn us around. And then we have no bully. Ain't going to let no bully turn us around. And then we'll end with nobody, just like the first verse. And so I made this recording last week just in case Alex didn't want to play, but he did and did awesome. So I figured this week we'll sing with the recording. Gary and Steve and Michael and I will sing the leader part. You're welcome to join us on the leader part or join us with the harmonies. So, all right, now you can start.
Now let us take a moment to engage together in the practice of generosity, an act also shared as one of the highest values held by Indigenous people. For those who are able to make a financial contribution, the logistics are on the screen. We typically give away all the cash from our Sunday offering to local charities, whose mission align with a program called the Month of Sundays. This month, the recipient is the Coast Transportation, a program of the Council of Aging, which provides rides for all citizens who need access to basic necessities or activities enhancing of life here on the Palouse and elsewhere. To donate, please indicate Month of Sundays on your check or from the online drop-down menu. In the spirit of love and for the continuing work of this church, we will now take time to practice generosity together. And I now invite Patricia Jessup, a member of our pastoral ministry care team, forward for the lighting of the candles of joy and sorrow.
Thank you. I invite you now into a time of meditation. These words by Mandy McGlynn. Spirit of life and love, Holy One of our being and our becoming, that which is sacred within, among, and beyond us. We know so many stories about you. God, Lord, King, Father, Earth Mother, Great Spirit, Universe, Holy Parent of deepest covenanted partner. Blessed One, we also know so many stories about ourselves. Some of them the same stories we tell about others. Beautiful, ugly, simple, difficult, joyous, worthless. Stories about who we are, what we know, and the potentials and impossibilities of our future. Stories about our purpose and the meaning of our lives. We have countless stories buried too deep in our souls to recognize them. God of discovery, help us find the strength to excavate those buried stories. Let us lean on one another as we brush them off, hold them up to the light, and find their meaning and use. May our roots nourish us so that we might grow abundantly and flower into blessings for one another and the world. Above all, Holy Parent, sing us a gentle lullaby. In the wind, in the kind words of our neighbors, in the warmth of the sun and the sparkle of the snow. Whisper to us the truest story you know, and sing it to us in notes we can never unhear. Remind us every day, every moment, that we are beloved. 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 Let us rest in that.
are living in the great big dipper. We are washed by the very same rain. We are swimming in the stream together, some in power and some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the beings that we live beside. Loving spirits will live forever. We are swimming to the other side.
I am alone and I am searching, hungry for answers in my time. I am balanced on the brink of wisdom, impatient to see a sign, moving forward with my senses open. Imperfection is my crime. In humility I will listen.
We're all swimming to the other side. On this journey through thoughts and feelings, intuition, my head and heart, I am gathering the tools together. I'm preparing to do my part. All of those who have come before me, band together and be my guide. Loving lessons that I will follow. We're all swimming to the other side. When we get there, we'll discover all the gifts we have been given to share. I've been here since life's beginning, and we never knew that they were there. We can balance at the brink of wisdom, never recognizing that we've arrived. Loving spirits will live together. We are swimming to the other side. We are living neath the great big dipper. We are washed by the very same rain. We are swimming in the stream together, some in power and some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the beings that we live beside. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side. We are living neath the great big dipper. We are washed by the very same rain. We are swimming in the stream together, some in power and some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the beings that we live beside. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side.
Gorgeous, thank you. Our reading today comes from a book called Finding Your Religion by Reverend Scotty McLennan. Now, Scotty McLennan was the campus chaplain, I think at Yale, maybe Tufts. I get them. You'd think I'd be able to keep them straight since I went to Yale, but whatever. And how many of you are Doonesbury fans? Okay, so Scotty was best friends with Gary Trudeau. And so the pastor in Doonesbury, Scotty was the model for the pastor. Anyway, so he wrote a book. It's called Finding Your Religion. He's a Unitarian Universalist minister, and these are his words. It is my experience that the spiritual mountain is best climbed along marked trails and paths. Of course, it's possible to make progress by striking out on one's own and bushwhacking through the brambles and undergrowth. That may also seem like a lot more exhilarating and more fun, for a while anyway, but it's also a lot easier that way to get lost, exhausted, and burned out. There are major world religions that have been around for millennia and have had billions of followers. These great religions offer wide paths that have accommodated the individual needs of radically different people. They've included mystics and intellectuals, artists and professional people, social activists, and common laborers. They've spoken in a wide variety of ways to people of all ages and all stages of spiritual development. From my perspective, none of these religions is inherently any more right than another. None has a lock on salvation, insight, community, creativity, or meaning. On the other hand, it's through established religions that we encounter much of what is called spirituality, and spirituality can best be developed along one of their paths. All of this is not to say that in mountain climbing one might not want to try different paths at different times. Even on one route, it's helpful to talk to pilgrims on other paths at trail crossings about what they've encountered and seen. Traveling companions on the same path may also have very different personal experiences depending on who they are and what they're looking for. Nonetheless, there are good reasons trails have been worn on a mountainside. They help the hiker progress without unnecessary obstacles and injury. They lead to points of interest. They facilitate camaraderie among fellow travelers. And the many feet that have gone before have kept the trails maintained for the next generation of venturers. Religion, at its best, offers up tips and tools that help us be better humans. What are the stories that help us make sense of our experiences? What are the practices that keep our hearts open, keep our minds peaceful? What are the values that inform lives of compassion, integrity, courage, and generosity? A lot of religious traditions are prescriptive. They offer just one path, one way to be human. And obviously that works for some folks, many billions of them actually. But even people who are committed to a single path find places where they stumble, times when they need to step away or take a shortcut or a long cut or a spur trail to an overlook. The truth is there are as many ways to be human as there are humans. Nature creates infinite diversity and incredible complexity. It's only we humans that try to force everyone into boxes, that try to enforce uniformity. In any event, as Unitarian Universalists, we value pluralism, which means embracing engagement with the people and the traditions that we encounter. Everyone has something to teach us. Every religious path has something to teach us. And as we engage, we find bits of wisdom that we're able to integrate into our own understandings of the world. I had breakfast yesterday with someone who identified herself as a spiritual omnivore. I love that phrase. I imagine a giant potluck where instead of bringing a dish, we each bring some piece of what we believe, what we practice, what we love, what we know about life, and we share it with our community. Then we sample each other's offerings. We listen to one another. We ask questions, and we give space and grace when we encounter the inevitable differences in our ways of being human. If you don't like something at a potluck, you just don't take any, or you leave it on your plate. There's no need to make a scene. Similarly, if one of the people or paths we encounter isn't to our personal liking, we needn't fuss or fight or argue. We just smile and move on. You do you. Or as our UU youth say, don't yuck someone else's yum. There's so many gifts that come from approaching spirituality this way. The first is freedom. We get to figure out what works for us in any given moment. We get to change our minds. No religious identity needs to be final. We can look for new perspectives when our old ones aren't serving us as well as they used to. Over time, practicing pluralism, we develop an appreciation for complexity that manifests as cultural competency. We become able to move from one space to another with less judgment and discomfort because we know in our bones that our way is not the only way. We can hold our culture lightly and focus on being good guests when we're invited into unfamiliar spaces. Embracing and practicing pluralism exposes us to a vast array of stories, strategies, and resources. Buddhist meditation, yoga, pagan ritual, qigong. No spiritual path is off limits for we Unitarian Universalists, so long as we maintain an attitude of respect for that tradition. That means that when we're faced with challenges, we can assemble a bigger toolkit than people who are limited to just one tradition. In this way, the pluralist approach makes us more resilient. And as we explore, freely and responsibly, we gain an appreciation for the multiplicity of expression. There are so many different ways to do this thing called life. Each culture has such beauty. The feelings of awe and reverence we feel as we encounter them open our minds and our hearts. There's another gift that I find in pluralism, and it's one that has emerged slowly through my lifetime, without diminishing the differences or oversimplifying. The more I explore, the more I feel as if there's an animating force that manifests in historically specific ways that pushes or pulls all of us, all of humanity, all over the world, in the same direction. On each spiritual path I've explored, while unique, I've found it heads in the same direction: greater compassion, a more peaceful mind, generosity and kindness, especially directed toward those who are suffering, honesty and authenticity. To quote Scotty McLennan again, there are many paths up that mountain, many paths that can reach the top, although very few people actually get to the summit of this very high mountain. Those paths may be rough or smooth, steep or easy, boring or colorful. Yet they're all on the same spiritual mountain, and ultimately they all converge at the very top, as mystics of all religions have told us. He continues, most of us aren't mystics, though, and for us the point is to enjoy the journey, to find fulfillment in our pilgrimage on the mountain itself, rather than to miss everything along the way in pursuit of the summit. The nature of the mountain, the view from the summit, those are mysteries. And the greatest gift pluralism offers are the amazing traveling companions and the experiences we meet along the way. I invite you now to rise in body or spirit. We're going to sing hymn number 1003, Where Do We Come From? This is a 3-part hymn. I think at least some of you know it.
We have not done it since I've been here.
Okay, so it's been a while. Okay, so I will then take the time to teach the 3 parts. Then we'll sing it together, part 1, part 2, and then part 3, and then we can try playing. I don't know. You're the music director. You tell me what to do.
Let's do it one time through without the rounds.
Okay.
Straight down.
And then break into thirds and do the rounds.
Yeah, we'll break into thirds and do the rounds.
Okay.
And then we'll do that 2 times.
Okay. Got it. Got it.
Should we take repeats or no?
I have no idea.
Yeah, let's take repeats.
I'm not looking at music. I'll just follow Sam. Okay. So the first part of the round goes like this. Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Here's the second part. Where do we come from? Where do we come from? And the fun part. Mystery, mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery. Okay. Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? So those are the 4 parts. And I'll break you into 4 sections, but feel free to just pick the part that you like the best and hang out. You're no fun. Okay, we'll just do 2. We'll split you down the middle. Okay, here we go. Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? Mystery, mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Mystery, mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery.
Experience. And that pluralism was well represented on our track team. I was on that team, running middle distances and anchoring the mile relay team. We traveled and attended track meets throughout the state. I distinctly remember one time when we were walking the streets of a rural community at night, the other side of the mountains, and boy did we get the stares. The glare of the distinct and different was so clear. We knew defeat and celebrated our victories. We got to know each other and respect each other. We participated and respected our difference, but when the baton was transferred seamlessly, there was no difference, and it made all the difference. It was a good track team, by the way. We were state champions in Colorado. That high school experience set the stage for what was yet to come. As a faculty member at the University of Idaho, I was asked to teach a year-long course on world religions. Wow. With some background on indigenous traditions and my own upbringing as a Methodist, I had to jumpstart the other traditions just to stay a step or two ahead of the students. It was a learning experience. And so I began teaching in the fall indigenous, Hindu, Buddhist, and Taoist religions, and in the spring, the Abrahamic traditions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And my track experience found its way onto the syllabus. As we engage the authentic primary text of Coyote cycle narratives, the Bhagavad Gita, the Dhammapada, the Tao Te Ching, the Torah, the Gospels, and the Quran, I asked my students, what is unique and distinct in each religion? What separates each from the next? In their ceremonies, theologies, creation stories, etc. And in juxtaposing each alongside their own upbringing, their own beliefs, reflect how each was distinct from you. I asked my students to come away with a greater appreciation and respect for the differing traditions, for the rich variety of the human experience, and in their own growing, unique worldview. At the same time, I asked my students, what is shared in common, universal in each religion? How are they alike in their ceremonies, theologies, creation stories, etc.? And in juxtaposing each alongside their own upbringing and beliefs, how is each a reflection of them? I asked my students to come away with a greater appreciation of what is universal in all religions, for the ubiquitous in the human experience, what is in common with their own growing shared worldview. Students were graded not on their competency to memorize or repeat back key ceremonies or theologies, not on getting the differences and the similarities right, because there is none, but on their ability to go deeply and reflect on each tradition's differences, to go deeply, reflect on their similarities, to go deeply in comparison with themselves, to go deep within themselves. Well, as a new student to world religions myself, it was my track pedagogy that served me well when a crisis befell me, diagnosed with third-stage cancer in 2005, and it reoccurring in 2009. On my healing journeys, as I reflected deeply on my own core values, what I called my treasures, and that's a good thing to do when you confront your morality, I found I could hold on to aspects of varied religions that were meaningful to me to help guide me along the way over very unfamiliar territory. For example, defining my cancer from passages from the Tao Te Ching. When two opponents meet, the one without an enemy will triumph. Or, the soft will always triumph over the hard, as water turns a mountain into sand. I embraced multiple ways of knowing, from Sundance spirituality and prayers to biomedical science and a stem cell transplant. And shaping my interactions with family and friends and caregivers, doctors, nurses, and even strangers, passages from the Bhagavad Gita, from the Dhammapada, and from the Gospels. Act renouncing the fruits of your action. As I engaged the differing, I also discovered the universal that permeates all, inclusive in all religions, that ushered forth no mutual exclusivity. At the heart was revealed love, compassion for all things. So, as each of my students went forth, as I've gone forth, as you go forth, should we not all run the race and hand off the baton, respecting our differences while acknowledging no difference? It makes all the difference.
This is the sound of one voice, one spirit, one voice, the sound of one who makes a choice. This is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of voices too. The sound of me singing with you, helping each other to make it through. This is the sound of voices too. This is the sound of voices too. This is the sound of voices three, singing together in harmony, surrendering to the mystery. This is the sound of voices three. This is the sound of voices three. This is the sound of all of us, singing with love and the will to trust. Leave the rest behind and we'll turn to dust. This is the sound of all of us. This is the sound of all. This is the sound of one voice, one people, one voice, a song for every one of us. This is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of one voice.
Thank you so much. To practice pluralism successfully, there are certain disciplines that we need to cultivate. Otherwise, we can be kind of like bulls in a china shop, causing inadvertent harm with our clumsiness. The most important, in my opinion, are curiosity, humility, compersion, I'll tell you what that is later, and making space. So curiosity, keeping an open mind and wanting to learn, means that when we encounter difference, especially difference that makes us uncomfortable, rather than shutting down or backing away, we lean in. We try to understand. We try to learn. When life surprises us, rather than getting scared, we get excited, eager to see what might unfold. As Celeste Ng puts it, being curious is admitting that you don't know, but also that you want to know, that people you don't know are worth knowing, that they have something to teach you, that learning about them, that encountering new ideas doesn't threaten you, it enriches you, that you approach the world as a trove of things to take in rather than things you frantically, fearfully wall out. In this age of overwhelming access to information, with more pouring in all the time, some of it with questionable provenance, practicing the discipline of curiosity doesn't look like going down every internet rabbit hole, but it does look like meeting people and meeting life itself with an openness, with a willingness to wonder and to be surprised. The second discipline I want to lift up is humility. There are a lot of very smart and accomplished people in this room. All y'all can be just a little intimidating sometimes. But here's the thing, none of us has a lock on the truth. I mean, we have people who have areas of expertise and a lot of knowledge, but when it comes to questions like how to be a good human, how to find inner peace, how to function and thrive in a culture that is toxic, none of us have all the answers. Everyone's just doing the best we can. We're figuring it out as we go along. So if someone is traveling a particular path and you feel tempted to judge them for it, remember Forrest Church's metaphor of parallax vision. Imagine you're at the edge of a mountain lake with a bright, full moon rising just over the horizon. You look down and there's a clear, glowing path that extends from your feet straight to the mountaintop. Meanwhile, there's someone off to either side, but they're standing in the dark. You feel sorry for them. You might want to call them over so that they can get on the same path you see. But for them, what are they seeing? For them, the path starts at their feet, and you are standing in the dark. Our spiritual paths, our ways of being human, are shaped by our life experiences. Any path that avoids harming others and leads toward deeper compassion, inner peace, and a generous spirit is a good path. Now, compersion may be an unfamiliar term. It actually comes out of the ethical polyamory community. It's similar to Freudenfreude, which is the opposite of Schadenfreude. So Schadenfreude is the joy, the delight that we find in others' misfortune. Freudenfreude is the joy we find in others' joy, the delight we find in their delight. And compersion is defined as our wholehearted participation in the happiness of others. It is the sympathetic joy we feel for somebody else even when their positive experience does not involve or benefit us directly. It's the opposite of jealousy and possessiveness. It depends on viewing other people as intrinsically autonomous and self-determined and celebrating their own unique path to fulfillment. We can go beyond accepting that people have a different path or perspective to actively celebrating that difference, feeling wholehearted joy for their sake. Last but not least, I want to talk about the discipline of making space. Wrapped up in this discipline are component skills like process observation and deep listening, power analysis. Some of us have privilege and authority by virtue of our identity or our position. And with power comes responsibility, so it's important to pay attention to group dynamics. Often there are imbalances related to gender. Studies show that in mixed gender groups, people who were socialized male tend to talk more freely than those who identify as female. And perception, interestingly, lags behind reality. The studies show when a group is deliberate about making sure both genders get equal airtime, men experience that as women dominating the conversation. So, if you are someone who tends to talk a lot in groups, just pay attention. Give more space to people who have less positional power. Don't assume that your perspective is the most correct or the most important one in the room. Make space so that everyone can share. And if you are someone who tends to hang back and stay quiet, try to speak up. Another good youth saying is step up, step back. Our youth are very wise that way. Making space is also about breathing. It's about slowing the tempo of the conversation. Good, deep, inclusive conversations have a slower rhythm, intervals of comfortable silence. Some of that's about processing speed. Many people need a pause to digest what they've heard before they're ready to speak. And normalizing that pause, it turns out, is another good discipline. When we pause, it means we can actually listen to one another deeply instead of sitting there formulating what we're going to say next. We can give each other that gift of our undivided attention. The quality of our interactions shift when we make space in these ways. People open up, trust grows, and connections settle into place. Ideas cross-pollinate and bloom in ways that are unexpected and often life-giving. So we will be deepening our practice of pluralism for the next several weeks. I want to give you a little heads up. Next Sunday, we're going to focus on healing from religious trauma. The week after that, we're going to think about healing from religious trauma. The week after that, we're going to hear from UU ministers who are bi or trans-religious, Buddhist UU, a Jewish UU, Muslim, Wiccan, Christian, and atheist. On the 24th, we're going to engage and celebrate the diversity of paths within this community. So it should be an interesting month. The more we learn about each other, the more there is to love. As we get better at relating and understanding one another, we get better at being human. Love grows. Pluralism ultimately is a practice of love, which is why love is always and ever at the center of our faith. So be it, and so may it be. I invite you now to join in our musical benediction, There is a Love. Please join me in the words to extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this chalice that it might go gently in our hearts. May it guide our paths as we leave this place. May it guide our way until we are together again. Beloveds, there are many paths up the mountain. There are even multiple paths next to rivers, through forests, into glades that are forgotten spaces. Explore them all. There's nothing off limits except the things that hurt you or hurt others. How much fun is that? Have a good week. Go in peace. Come back next Sunday.